Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're looking at modern corporate strategy through, well, a pretty unexpected lens, 16th century statecraft. Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince is so often misunderstood as just this cynical manual for a political ruthlessness. But honestly, if you strip away the Renaissance context, what you actually have is a masterclass in risk management, proactive preparation, and foundational corporate defense. To get us right into the headspace we need for this, I want you to consider a playful but very real pro tip. Sunscreen is useless once you're already peeling, right? If you didn't prep for the market crash while the stocks were high, you cannot blame the economy for your bad quarter. And that idea completely encapsulates everything we are exploring today. It is all about prioritizing foresight over fortune. We're going to be looking at what elite leaders do when the skies are clear, because that entirely dictates whether or not they survive when the storm actually hits. So that brings us to the absolute core concept of this explainer, something we're calling the complacency audit. Think of this as a strategic stress test of your company's leadership and its foundation. We're specifically evaluating the proactive preparation you're making right now during the so-called quiet times. Are you actively fortifying your market position, or are you kind of just coasting on the momentum of a good quarter? All right, here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the complacency audit, relocating to the territory, the traits of armed prophets, building secure foundations, foresight over fortune, and finally, relying on your own valor. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The complacency audit, the hidden danger of quiet times. The source material is literally pulling no punches here. Machiavelli looked at Italian princes who lost their states after holding them for years, and he pointed out that they didn't lose them because of bad luck. They lost them because of their own sloth. When times were good, they just never imagined things could change. And honestly, this is such a common human defect, failing to make provision in the calm against the tempest. Modern executives do the exact same thing, don't we? We see a few good quarters, and suddenly we stop innovating. We stop looking for the friction points. We just get lazy. Moving on to Section 2, relocate to the territory, managing new market acquisitions. This next concept brilliantly illustrates a crucial lesson in corporate expansion. When you acquire a new company or expand into a completely new international market, how are you actually managing it? Consider the proxy manager model. King Louis XII acquired Milan, tried to manage it entirely remotely, and lost it almost immediately. Compare that to the on-the-ground executive. The Turks secured Greece, a totally foreign territory with completely different customs, by actually going to reside there personally. If you are sitting in the C-suite right now mapping out an acquisition, consider this your operational mandate. Why does personal presence work so well? Because when you are physically there, or when you send your absolute most trusted elite internal team to reside there, you spot operational disorders as they spring up. You can put out a spark way before it turns into a 5-alarm fire. You prevent outsourced remote managers from pillaging your resources. You provide prompt, immediate recourse for your new teams and your new customers, which builds incredible loyalty. And frankly, any competitor trying to poach your new market share is going to have an incredibly difficult time dislodging a leader who is deeply entrenched on the front lines. Section 3. Traits of Armed Prophets, the Founder's Edge. It is absolutely fascinating how well we can translate these specific historical traits into essential survival skills for modern corporate founders. Machiavelli's armed prophets are innovators who rely heavily on their own internal resources. They don't just get lucky, they are exceptional at recognizing market opportunities where everyone else just sees chaos. They take the absolute lead in introducing a new order of things. They are market disruptors. But the final point is really the most vital. They possess the actual leverage to enforce their vision when push comes to shove. To really put that into perspective, armed prophets like Moses and Cyrus succeeded because they backed their grand visions with their own leverage and capability. But look at the unarmed prophet, Girolamo Savonarola. He had a great vision, but he was ruined the exact moment the multitude stopped believing in him, simply because he had no means to keep them steadfast. In business, public opinion and consumer trends are incredibly fickle. If your entire business model relies purely on viral hype or, say, the fleeting goodwill of a third-party platform, you are an unarmed prophet. You have to build proprietary leverage so that when the market inevitably stops believing for a moment, you can actually force the change and weather the storm. All right, Section 4, Building Secure Foundations, Consolidation Playbooks. Let's break down Cesare Borgia's historical and, yes, rather ruthless consolidation of the Romagna into a highly actionable step-by-step guide for modern market dominance post-acquisition.
Step 1. You weaken your competitors and proactively poach their top talent to your side. Step 2. You secure the absolute loyalty of this newly acquired talent by generously distributing equity, resources, and meaningful titles. Step 3. You swiftly remove any toxic, hostile, or misaligned legacy leadership from the company you just bought. You have to rip the Band-Aid off quickly. Do not let resentment fester. And step 4, pacify the broader employee base and consumer market by instituting incredibly effective, clear, and strict operational governance. Believe it or not, people will absolutely tolerate a rigid system if it brings them stability and prosperity.
Section 5. Foresight over fortune. The timeline of disaster.
I love this medical analogy Machiavelli uses. He calls it the hectic fever, and it maps perfectly to the timeline of a corporate disaster. In the quiet times, the onset of the fever, the initial market complacency, is very easy to cure, but it's incredibly hard to detect because everything looks totally fine on the surface. But because leaders lack foresight, they let these rising issues grow. Eventually, the problems become visible to absolutely everyone. By the time you reach the tempest stage, the full-blown market crash, the disease is incredibly easy to detect. I mean, everyone sees your stock plummeting. But at that point, it is nearly impossible to cure. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. You must make provision in the calm against the tempest. Act like the ancient Romans. When they saw foreseeable trouble brewing on the horizon, they dealt with it at once. They didn't kick the can down the road just to enjoy the benefits of the time. They solved the root cause, even if it meant taking some short-term pain, in order to secure their long-term stability. Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Rely on Your Own Valor, True Corporate Defense. We really need to talk about who is actually holding the keys to your kingdom right now. Relying on outsourced competencies, what Machiavelli called auxiliary and mercenary troops, is unfaithful and exceptionally dangerous. If you outsource your core engineering, your primary sales channels, or your key customer data to third-party platforms and contractors, they will absolutely hold you hostage when things get tight. True corporate defense comes from in-house capabilities, your own arms, your own dedicated teams, your proprietary tech. That is what actually stands firm under pressure. And that brings us to the ultimate, fundamental principle. The only reliable and durable defenses are those that depend on yourself and your own valor. You literally cannot blame the market, the algorithm, or the broader economy for a bad quarter. If you failed to build an internal moat, if you didn't prepare your team's discipline while times were good and the money was flowing, that is a failure of leadership, plain and simple. I want to leave you with a provocative question to take back to your next board meeting. Take a hard look at your operations right now. If the market tempest hit tomorrow, if supply chains completely broke, if capital dried up overnight, if competitors suddenly flooded your space, are your defenses currently relying on the good fortune of the market, or are they built on your own unshakable, proactive foundation? It's time to run your own complacency audit. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go look at your own strategy with the cold, clear foresight of a 16th century tactician.